right, hello everyone and welcome to our weekly 30-minute webinar. My name is Matt Sykes, Systems Engineer here at Variphy, and I'll be your host in today's webinar. We're joined today with Dan Schmidt, aka Danimal, another Systems Engineer here at Variphy. And for today's webinar, we're going to focus on the new Variphy 12.2 feature enhancement, specifically the CUCM and UCCX custom labels. We're going to start off with a quick overview of our company and what we do. We'll jump into a live demo where Dan will guide us through creation and use of some custom label sets within Variphy 12.2. We'll pause for Q&A and get some of your questions answered. And if so, during the demo, you have any questions that you want to present to us, feel free to go ahead and chat those through to us on the Q&A panel in the right-hand corner of the screen, not the WebEx chat, the Q&A panel, please. And then lastly, after Q&A, we will reward one lucky attendee a $50 Amazon gift card, so hang around to see what you may have won. So a quick overview of Variphy. Variphy is the preferred analytics and management solution for Cisco collaboration. We provide industry-leading CDR reporting and call analytics, customizable dashboards and widgets, UCCX reporting, remote phone control, change management, DNDID management. But today, we're going to be focused on the UCM and UCCX call analytics and the new custom labeling. If you have any other questions on any of our other related features, we can most certainly take them offline and get those answered. Before we get started, we want to announce that the Variphy team now offers a new service that provides managed consulting services to our customers. Variphy Systems Engineer team, or SE team, will be engaged on a one-on-one basis to remotely provide additional consulting, unassisted reporting, dashboarding, configurations, and system monitoring assistance. This is a service that provides a dedicated Variphy SE to do all the heavy lifting of report creation, generating, and dashboard creations, and all those good things. So for more information, please feel free to contact us, and we'd be glad to speak with you further and more in depth about our new service offering. Okay, so without further ado, let's hop into the demo. So Dan, we'll get us started. Let me go ahead and pass you the ball, sir.
Thank you, Matt. And thank you, everybody, for joining us on this Wednesday afternoon. Today, we're going to be showing you our new 12.2 custom label sets. So this has been a long anticipated feature here. Glad to see we finally got it in. And some of you may be asking, well, what is the purpose of custom label sets? What you had before was just fine. I understood all of that information. So the primary driver and primary purpose of custom label sets really came around to expanding the use of the application to non-technical users. For those of you that are in Variphy all the time, right, the fields pretty much make sense because you've grown accustomed to what the meanings are and what each of the different search criteria options and the detail criteria, what all of that actually means. To expand the use to non-technical users coming in as a first-time user, not everyone's going to know what the original called party number is compared to, let's say, the final call party number or even calling party number or whatever option we have in our search criteria option. So that's the primary driver of this, is to get better use of the application by non-technical users. Okay, so what we're going to be showing you rather today are two or three things. One, the rules to set up custom label sets. How does this affect my other users? And then the actual general use and seeing this information as a non-technical user actually logs into the system and runs some searches and reports. Okay, all right, so let's get into it. As an administrator, right, because custom label sets are really only defined by system admins, okay? So as a system administrator, I could log into my call analytics tool, whether that be for CCX or for call manager. Right now I'm on my call manager cluster, and under the configure tab before, we've added a new option called custom label sets at the end here, you see. I've got a previously defined one here, but I'm gonna just kind of walk you through what a custom label set looks like. Okay, so first things first, obviously we're going to give this custom label set a name, and then we see 4 columns here, or 4 tabs rather. These are the different components that any user would normally see in any report build. Okay, so within any report build for CDR, first thing that you're used to seeing is your search criteria options. As you drill down those search criteria options, you're going to see the calling party number, you're going to see the original call party number, all the department information. Again, to a non-technical user, that might be a little bit confusing, right? We might need to do some training to really define and help that user understand what all of those meanings actually represent, or all those options represent. To kind of alleviate that pain here, we now have the option to say, well, for our search criteria options alone, plug in what the original search criteria type selection is, and then what going forward, what you want that to be named. So anywhere in the application, when that user signs in, they will now see the label of from ext or from extension. Okay, so you're picking and choosing. Here's all of our default options, as we would say, and you're growing out a list that states these original options are now these new custom labels. Okay, this will follow through the entirety of the application. Okay, for in this case for CUCM specifically. Okay, now we do have other data types. The next main data type that everyone's going to be familiar with is our detail column types. This begins to show the granularity that we've embedded into this feature that allows if you want a different name or a different header to be displayed in the detail section of the report versus the search criteria options of the report, you do have the ability of doing that. Okay. Now, to keep things simple here, I've gone along with the same names just so you guys could kind of see the trail. But again, calling party number, I now want to see in my detail section of the report it to be called from ext, okay, or date time origination. Well, what does that imply? Is that the date and time that the call was presented, or is that present the date and time the call was answered or connected? That might be confusing to some users, right? So I just abbreviated to call orig time, just as an example. Another primary use case of this too is in some cases the headers might be too much or too long, requiring too much space in a report or too much space on a dashboard widget, because obviously the longer the header is, the wider that column has to be in the document or on the widget. So you could shrink this down so you could save some space. And that's what I've done here. So dialed user, it tells me exactly what it is. So on and so forth. Okay. The next type of data that we can apply custom label sets to are our grouping types. Now, when you've requested the information out of the database and you have that primary grouping type option drop down, that's what this is. Okay, so in primary grouping types, again, all the same options, but you do have the option of keeping the same label or creating a new label. And then last but not least is our call statistics and scenario types. So more in line with the call analytical scenarios, the connected versus not connected calls. I could go ahead and rename all of that. We do get a very, very common request saying, well, do you have definitions of what a connected call is versus a not connected call versus an abandoned maybe? Well, if you're an administrator, the more times that you get that, the more likely you are going to say, well, maybe we can more easily define what a connected call is versus a not connected call or an abandoned. So that's the call statistic types here. Right, you can rename the title of that call statistic, right? And so to shrink down maybe the width of the column, instead of having a long header name, I could just put an ampersand in there to make it a lot shorter. Okay. And then down below here is instead of the call statistic type, we're going to the call scenario type. And then this is where you would have the connected, abandoned, transferred, forwarded. If you wanted to rename that, you certainly could. Maybe instead of forwarded calls, you wanted redirected calls, let's say, but whatever the case may be. In my example here, as an administrator, there's really nothing defining, because it's custom, there's really nothing defining what a long, medium, or short duration call is. That is all customizable to the application per organization. But if I know that I've set my long duration calls to be 30 or more minutes, I could put that in the header now, or I could, display 30 plus minute duration. So whoever's seeing this report as an output, it's very clear what that value represents. Okay. All right. So that's on the CDR front. Again, with the, we do have the support for CCX side as well. So real quick, I'm going to change over to my CCX cluster so you can kind of see the little bit of a difference there. And I've created a label set here to show you guys. And it's it looks the same, but there's a little bit more options here. Okay. So again, this is very self-explanatory, the detail column types. This is in a CCX report, the call detail information. These are the values that you have to choose from when building out that detail section of the report. Where it really comes into play here are these next tabs here. Again, search criteria types is Well, when I'm building out a report for contact center, what are my search criteria options? I'm going to rename those. But here, the last two, we're kind of taking both agent-based reports and queue-based reports, and we're being able to apply differences totally. So you can see that agent state statistic types. If I drop this down here, it's a lot of state information. And our state information will cross multiple types of reports, right? You have your agent summary, you have your agent detail, you do have your real-time agent widgets too. So anywhere where you would see this default header, it's going to replace that, okay? So rest assured, it's any agent-based state information, that name is gonna follow through, okay? And then last but not least is our CSQ statistics type. Again, more of the high-level information, but on a queue-based report, it really comes in line saying, well, what types of calls are coming in or out of these queues? And so you could rename these. Obviously, a lot of use cases for this. These titles are, to some, very confusing. What is the difference between a IPC call versus a non-IPCC call, or outbound IPCC call, right? All of those are options in this list. If you want to more easily explain that to a user, you can do that via this method, okay? So once you have your custom label sets configured, like I do, so I've got one label set for my CDR data and one label for my CCX data. The next thing to do, or to really focus on as administrator, is permitting these label sets to other users, okay? And the way to think about this is label sets are not tied necessarily to reports. Label sets are tied to users, okay? So first thing that I need to do as administrator is permit this label set to a user or a group. So I'm going to go into my users and groups here, and I've got two users, one as an admin account, which is going to be my Dan local account, and then one is a non-admin account that has some restrictions. So I'm going to show you the differences and really just focus on the non-admin type, because that's the scenario that we're working with here. So for a non-admin user, right, you're going to go through, set them up, and give them permissions, whether they're a system administrator or not. They're not in this case. But where this comes into play is now when you associate a cluster to this user. So this user now has access to our call manager cluster and our contact center express cluster. When you check call analytics, you will now see a new drop down at the very bottom. And we are going to allow you to pick and choose from whatever custom label sets you have assigned to that appropriate cluster type. Okay, so it's not a per cluster setting even. If I have multiple call manager clusters, this is assuming that all call manager cluster types will inherit one or more custom label set. I could very well build out 3 custom labels and append all 3 custom labels to this cluster type, okay? It then becomes really a user preference, okay? As to what custom label set they want to see when they generate reports, if you assign more than one, that is, okay? So the next part of this is, as administrator, I'm done. I've set up this non-admin user to have access to call analytics only for CDR and call analytics only for CCX data types. I've associated each of my custom label sets for the type of cluster that they have access to. So next, what I'm going to show you is I'm going to log in as this non-admin administrator user and show you what that looks like. Okay, logging in as a non-administrator type, I can see I don't have access to all the other features. I don't even have access to define or customize those custom label sets. Again, that is an administration function, but me as a user, I now do have the ability to pick what custom label sets I want to see for each of the different cluster types. So first and foremost, as a new user into the application, I must go into my profile settings, okay? Off the bat, now this is not showing this way, but off the bat, it's going to be labeled still as system default, meaning it's going to use our built-in headers. That user must go in and select specifically what custom label set they want to see when they are running searches in call history or in reports, both on the CCX side or CDR side. Okay, so again, you can see it defined by cluster type. Here's my label set for call manager. Here's my label set for contact center. Okay. Once I save that, all of my detail options, my search criteria options, those change the instant I select that. So now in my call history tool, I can immediately see that dialed number. That is the new name for what used to be my original call party number. And notice as I'm hovering over this name, we've now imposed a hover over informational piece that tells you that this is a custom label. Okay. For fields that have not been affected by a custom label, they won't have that hover over information. Okay. So very easily, I could see that dialed number is actually a custom label from the original default name of original call party number. Okay. And you just go on your way with doing searches and everything that you're normally used to doing. Okay. So where a lot of the components really come into play is the reporting side of it, because you did have your grouping section, you did have your call analytics and scenarios section. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to show you a quick sample report here, or actually let's build out a fresh report. On this non-admin user, this user just wants a very basic internal calls report. Okay, let's go ahead and create that out. Okay, so I'm going to call this internal calls report. Okay, and then next is our search set. So again, this is the second tab of that custom label set configuration. Is in my search criteria options themselves, impose these names. And remember, they could be different from the detail columns if you wish. More times than not, you're probably going to keep them the same. So I'm just going to give this a quick name, and all of my search criteria options now impose or force the new names that I've indicated. So right off the bat, I could see, well, instead of calling party number, it's now taken the name, the new form of from ext. Okay. So I want to say this is a 4-digit number. And under the dialed party, right, instead of the original called party number, you could see now dialed number. I'm going to add that in as well. And I obviously want this to be ANDed together, so match all criteria. Okay. And the other types here, the grouping statistics. So based off of the calls I have queried out of the database, what am I sorting the information by? In this case, it's an internal calls report. So I just want to see the number of internal calls that were actually initiated by each extension. Okay. So I'm going to enable grouping. And in my primary grouping type, you can now see again in alphabetical order, it's no longer sitting at the top of the list, which would normally be calling party number. It is now in alphabetical order by the new name imposed, so from ext. So we're sorting by the from extension on this internal calls report. Okay, and that's pretty much it for the grouping side of it. The last side is the call history, or actually, I can actually go in here and enable the call statistics and scenarios, right? Because we did have another tab just for that. So if in my example, I imposed a name to override what we would normally call is the total sequence count, right? A lot of people ask, well, what does that actually mean? Total sequence count is essentially the number of entire sequences that a leg was involved with. So you might have 3, 4, 5, maybe 8 call legs within one call sequence. So I've named it cradle to grave sequences. So again, you can see the label override saying this is a custom label for what used to be total call sequence count. So I want to see that. Okay. And what other options here? Again, I've used number connected instead of the long verbiage. So to shrink the header widths, if you will. Okay. So and then the last piece is obviously the call history details. Okay, that fourth piece of the custom label set configuration itself. You can see that some of the default options that we always put in our details have already been adjusted. So that will follow through. You could see the from ext there. You could see the answering number. This used to be the final called party number. So this is whatever you've put in your custom label set. Okay, so as this user, I own this custom label set, and I'm seeing all those names that were configured within that custom label set. Okay, so now when you run this, okay, if a user has been configured with multiple custom label sets, that user can even change it at the report running time. So when you run a report, I could switch between, if I had I guess I do have two to choose from. If I wanted to see the original names back again in this report, I could say, well, instead of all these new names, use system default instead. I want to see the original default names that Variphy imposes instead of my custom label set. So this just kind of shows you the label set is not tied to the report. The label set is tied to the user. And when that user creates a report, that user then decides what custom label set to use. So it's very flexible in that way. Okay. And notice on the right side, we have a new checkbox called Show Custom Labels Appendix. This is very, very important, more so for us, I would say, at Variphy, to say if we're helping you guys troubleshoot a report, if we are seeing names that we aren't familiar with, like that's outside of the default naming index, right, we're going to append an appendix at the end of the report that shows your attribute mapping, meaning the from ext actually rolls up to the default name of the calling party number. And so it's going to really help us troubleshoot what each of the columns are in the report, what the search criteria options are in the report. Okay, so we may ask you to append that appendix if you're working with us, but for you guys, you know what your custom label sets are already. So you may not necessarily need this checked, but to further troubleshoot something, that's going to help us at Variphy a lot. So that's why we baked it in there. Okay, so I'm going to run this report here real quick and show you how these names actually take effect in a report format. Okay. All right, so this is the internal calls report here, and immediately off the bat, right, our search criteria summary indicates what options we've used. It's literally just replacing the calling party number fields and the original call party number fields with the new name. So I could see that in here in the report. Okay, we grouped by the from number option. Okay, so that used to be the final call, the calling party number option. So we got from number, and then we're sorting through all these different calling party numbers, or now the from numbers. If I wanted to see detail on any one of these here, you again can now see that the new names have also taken place in the detail section of this report. So dial number used to be original call party number, answering number used to be final call party number, and then from ext, right, was my example for calling party number. So just a lot of granularity when it comes to this. Okay, so this is a sample of seeing all the different options in action. Okay, now you may ask, okay, that's great. You have all your new names in reports. Does this also show up in dashboards? The answer is yes. So if I were to go into my dashboard real quick, I've got two call manager based widgets and two CCX based widgets down here on my dashboard. I just want to illustrate really quick here. So at a user level, right, the control is given to the user to switch between the assigned custom label sets. And so under our appearance button now, we do have the option to define what custom label set to use, either entirety on the dashboard. We also actually give you the ability to switch it between widgets if you have the need to. Again, we try to code the product for every use case possible. So you will see the granularity here. So right off the bat, if I switch this to system default here, you're going to see my capacity widget refresh and look at the names here: total call sequence count and total average call duration. So those are Variphy's terms, like the default names that you would get as you first install the product. If I switch back, right, it's taking the new names from the custom label set. Okay, basically the same thing for CCX label sets as well. If I go to the CCX system default set on my CCX data, I will see, I could expand these out a little bit, abandoned count, right? Well, again, it may be unclear what abandoned actually means in CCX terms, but if I as an administrator want to make that a little bit more clear for my non-technical users, I could also do it right here too. Appearance, widget. And so now I've actually renamed it to the customer hangups, right? That's very clear as to what an abandoned call is. Same with this. So this just illustrates at a dashboard level, you could change it. And then also at a per widget level, you can change it, and it does bring across, if a user was assigned multiple data sets, which is possible, you could switch between the two independently of each widget. Okay. So hopefully you guys could see the benefit here. There's quite a few benefits of getting this. It's just allowing a little bit more flexibility and giving an understanding to non-technical users. If an administrator really just wants to go out and say, here are these options, this probably makes a little bit more sense to you, and display your widgets and reports as to how you want instead of how Variphy forces you to see it. So thank you everyone for joining. I guess now we'll open it up to some questions. So Matt, any questions that came through?
Yes, we do. Yeah, awesome job, Dan. Great show as always. Thank you. We do have a couple questions that rolled down the pipeline here. One actually that came in from Steve that you actually just answered and just covered. Do these label sets work on the dashboard widgets? Well, as Dan just demonstrated, yes, they do. And he also showed the ability to use different label sets in different widgets on the same boards altogether. So there's definitely a lot of flexibility there. So good question, and Dan just covered that. We have a question from Molly. She wants to know, will custom label sets apply to scheduled reports?
Yep, good question, Molly. So the answer short term is yes. And so while I'm in my system, let me show you how this works. Again, custom label sets being specific to the user. So if a user goes in and has the security privileges to create scheduled reports, let me make sure I don't think I am signed in with that user correctly. Let me log in my other user real quick. All right, so now as a user that has the permission to create schedules, I could very well go into my schedule, and you will see the ability in the delivery here. Yep, in the delivery tab, you do have the option of applying a label set to that report. So again, we're right now in our call manager cluster reports. So it's basing it off of the type of cluster. If this is schedules for CUCX clusters, these will simply pull the labels for CUCX cluster type. So you can see my global new label. That's the one label that I had on my cluster. And so, yeah, you could very well build out a schedule that implies or pulls all the header information off of that new custom label set. Absolutely. And then here you can also see the ability to append the name mappings as well. So, yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan. I think that looks like there's nothing else left in the Q&A panel. That should wrap us up on the Q&A. So I will snag presenter rights back if you don't mind. And the moment everyone has been waiting for. I suppose it would help if I shared out my screen, though. Here we are, the one we've all been waiting for. So the winner of the weekly $50 Amazon gift card goes to Jonathan Collins. Woo! Congratulations, Jonathan. Your account manager from Variphy will be in contact with you to get that over to you. And last but not least, I do want to thank everyone for attending today's webinar. Want to make reference of next week's 30-minute webinar as well. Dan and I will be tag teaming it again. We'll be covering building business org-based reporting using the custom attributes synced from Active Directory. So I'm going to take the custom label sets a step further, kind of show some org-based reporting there. And that should be pretty good and knowledgeable for all. So thank you everyone for joining. The last piece I do want to mention, pardon me, is going to be on the Variphy's webinar page. If you are interested in the 12.2 version of Variphy that is due coming out soon, we will be releasing an EFT shortly. So if you are interested, please contact our beta team at beta@variphy.com. And also just want to plug, we do have our house party coming up next month. A lot of cool prizes and features and in-depth dives we're going to do in that. So just stay invested, because we will be reaching out to you with regards to upcoming announcements for that. So thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day and have a good week.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.